We've seen how to open and read a file. Now it's time to add some data into the file using the W-access method, W for writing. This is used to open a file for writing only. First of all, I should say that the W method also creates the file for writing if the file doesn't exist, and overrides the file if the file already exists. Let me prove this. We will create a file named newFile.txt in the current directory using the open function and the W method. First, in case you don't trust me, let's do an ls on the current directory to see that newFile.txt does not exist. So ls, okay, we don't have any newFile.txt here. Now let's create the file for writing, and first let's create a file object. So let's name it newFile equals open newFile.txt in between double quotes, a comma, and W for writing. Okay, let's check new file. Now let's check the current directory. Let's do another ls. Good, we have the file where we want it. So over here in the current directory. Also the file it is already open for writing. So as you can see, mode W. Now let's start writing. For this we have the write method in Python. So let's use new file, our file object name, dot write, and in between parentheses you should enter the string you want to input into the file. So let's say I like Python, a new line, do you, and another new line, and okay, that's it. So sorry, okay, so we wrote this string to the file. Now let's check that our text was indeed written to the file. You may say, well, let's use the read method for this. Actually, I'm sorry, but you cannot do this, because now we have the file open only for writing, not for writing and reading. But for the sake of the discussion, let's try to read the file. So new file dot read. So we get an IO error saying that the file is not open for reading. I will show you how to open a file for both reading and writing. But for now, let's check if our string was indeed added to the file using the linux cat command. So let's go to the Linux shell, cat newFile.txt. Disappointment again. Nothing is shown. Why is that? The answer is because we didn't close the file after writing to it, and thus our change to the file was not saved. Let's go ahead and close the file and then check its content again. We will do this with the close method. We will talk more about closing files in the next lecture, but for now let's use the close method. newFile.close, and that's it. Now let's check the file again. Nice, this looks good. So far we used the W access mode inside the open function to create a new file for writing. Now inside the same file, newFile.txt, let's add some more data. First we should open the file for writing again using the open function. Okay. Also, don't forget to close the file again after you made all your changes. Let's write another thing. This is a great day for science. Okay, let's close the file. And now let's check the file in the Linux shell. Okay, this looks like this because we didn't add a new line character to the string. Okay, no problem. Let's go ahead and check this as it is. Notice that the old data is not there anymore. So I like Python, do you is not in the file anymore. This is because once you open an existing file for writing, the content of the file is deleted and Python overwrites the old data with the new data you input using the write function. So be very careful when using the open function and the waccess method. If the file already exists, Python will overwrite the old data in the file. Another method you can use to write data to a file is writelines. This method takes a sequence of strings as an argument and writes those strings to the file. Usually this sequence is a list. Let's use the same file as before, newfile.txt. Remember that Python will overwrite the data in the file because we will open the file again for writing. So we open the file. Now let's use the writelines method, newfile.writelines. And in between parentheses, let's add a list of, I don't know, networking vendors. Let's say Cisco, Juniper, let's use a capital J. OK, HP, and the last element of the sequence, let's make it a new line character. OK, let's go ahead and close the file and check the contents again. So notice that the elements of the list passed as an argument are written to the file without any spaces or new lines in between them. This is how the writelines method works. You can also pass a tuple to the writelines method. Let's see this. Let's open the file again for writing only. And instead of this list, let's use a tuple. A few elements here. OK, let's say arista. And \n character at the end of the tuple. OK, let's close the file. And let's check it again. The new data has been extracted from the tuple and inserted into the file. Good. Now, if you want to keep the data in the file and also write some new data, you should use the access method. This means append. This method adds new data to the end of the file if that file exists. If it doesn't, then it creates the file. So we currently have the Nortel via Nortel and Arista string inside newfile.txt. Let's open the file again, this time for appending, so using the access mode, and let's add a new string. So write, let's use the write method this time. Let's say this string was appended and a \n at the end. Okay, now let's close the file. Let's check the file again in the Linux shell. And indeed the old string was kept over here, and the new one has been added to the end of the file right here. I promised that I'll show you how to open a file for both writing and reading at the same time, to be able to read its contents after writing without making use of the Linux shell commands. The access methods to use in this case are r+, w+, and a+. For example, using w+, we'll open a file for writing and reading, and if the file doesn't exist, it will create it. Let's open newfile.txt again for writing, using just w, and try to read it. We should get the IO error again, right? So let's say new file, write something, newfile.read. Now let's close the file and open it using w+. So newfile.close, newfile.open, newfile.txt, w+, and let's go ahead and write something, the \n. OK. Let's also jump to the beginning of the file to read properly. So remember newfile.seek of 0. And now let's read the file using newfile.read. Cool, so you can now write and read the file at the same time. Finally, let's close the file to save it and check if the string was written. New file dot close. Let's go to the Linux shell. Cat. Okay, so the string was indeed written to the file. Great. Now it's time to talk about file closing.